Egypt is a land of ancient history and stunning monuments, where the lushness of the Nile and the starkness of the Sahara provide striking and memorable contrast. In this webinar, we are joined by two specialists from Cairo that I work with when crafting bespoke itineraries to this country. I hope you enjoy this video and learn a lot along the way. Hello, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us here today. I am, for those that haven't met me yet, I am Ron Montgomery, and I run Spirit of Travel, which is a bespoke travel agency in Christchurch. So we are all about spending a lot of time with our clients to really understand why they travel, what they're looking to do, so that we can then, the other half of the equation of what makes it different, reach out to my network of destination specialists around the world in order to really craft a unique and true to you experience.
Hi everyone, my name's Kenzie. I'm from Egypt, of course. And I've been working with Travelline for 5 years now. But I mean, the company's been basically in my blood since I was born, since it's a family-owned business. Okay, so basically the company was founded in 2002 by my father and his brother. As I was saying, it's a family-owned business, but I'd say it's more on the boutique end. So we're quite small. We have offices all around the country. So basically, whenever you come to Egypt, we take care of you in every point. We have offices in Cairo, which is the capital city, Hurghada, Sharm el-Sheikh, Luxor, Aswan. And we have 5 different sub-companies. So we have the Nile Cruises, which Rania will talk to you about later on, where we own 5 cruise boats, and we're actually building a 6th, which is going to be launched in September. And then we have a transportation company, so we have our own fleet of cars. And then we have the tourism side of things, where we can basically curate your itineraries from start to end all around the country. And then we have an investment side of things, where we own properties by the Red Sea, which we will eventually turn into serviced apartments and boutique hotels.
Those are the people behind the company. So this is Kenzie's dad, and this is my husband. So this is how we came along. I've been in the family for the past 20 years when Kenzie was still a young kid. So she's more my niece than she's actually my husband's niece. And just recently we decided to take on the business. The 2 big brothers, they just decided that we are fit and we're ready to take on. Very women empowered. We really want to change the face of tourism. It's not just the normal tourism that people would come and enjoy the pyramids. It's all about the experience, and that's exactly what we're trying to. Myself, for the past 2 years, we enjoy traveling together. We travel the world and we show off our treasure, like our country, how it should be traveled, how we receive people. And Kenzie is doing the tourism part. I'm going to talk about the cruising part.
So as I was saying before, tourism is one of our main parts of the company. We do everything that you can think of, from packaged trips to just hotel bookings, cruise bookings. I mean, you can book as little as 1 service with us or the whole entire thing. We have our own ticketing department. So for all of the domestic flights, we can actually do that for you, so that if anything happens while you're on ground, like let's say delays or canceled flights, we handle everything for you and you don't have to be calling New Zealand, which is a hell of a huge time difference. And we do all kinds of incentive trips as well. I mean, for companies, we do events as well. So we've done weddings before. We meet you at all of the airports. We have escorted transfers with representatives who speak English, because the drivers focus on driving. And trust me, when you come to Egypt, you'll understand exactly why I'm saying that. And then the representatives are focused with you to answer any of your questions, or, I mean, explain to you the things that you're seeing along the way when you're driving in Cairo. And trust me, you'll be seeing a lot of different things, from donkeys to camels to trucks, vintage cars. It's really amazing. Our excursions are escorted by the country's best Egyptologist guides, and when I say that, I really mean it. They've been working with us for more than 20 years because the brothers have actually been in the business since the 1970s. So they have a lot of experience with the different guides in Egypt. And we actually have guides that specialize in different things. So let's say, for example, we have guides that specialize in ancient Egypt, obviously. Then we have guides that specialize in Jewish tourism. We have like religious tourism, spiritual. So it's, I mean, we really assign the right guide to the client that's coming. So we've moved on to the map of Egypt. This is, I mean, there's so much to see, so it's very difficult for me to go through every single destination there. But I'd say the highlights and the things that you must do when you come, especially as a first timer, are Cairo, Upper Egypt, which are Luxor and Aswan. And I know that you have a lot of beaches nearby, but the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea are really beautiful. And if you can fit that in, if you have the time, then I would really recommend it. Also, something that's super off the beaten track is Siwa. So Siwa is an oasis in the north of Egypt. It's quite difficult to get to, so I would say that it's not as visited as the other destinations. It's around an 8-hour drive from Cairo. But to break it up and make it feel a little bit less intense, we can stop by Alexandria, which is only 3.5 hours away from Cairo, do some tours there, spend the night, and then continue on to Siwa the next day. The nice thing about Siwa is that mostly it's eco-lodges, so you're really in touch with nature. There's a historical aspect to it as well. So you get to see tombs there, which I don't think you would ever expect because you're literally in a desert oasis. You can also go swimming. So if we go to the next slide, please, Rania. So basically, if you can see from the photos, this is just an example of what Siwa is like and how different the areas are within that oasis. So it's mainly desert, and then all of a sudden there are salt lakes, which is basically like swimming in the Dead Sea. You're floating, it's super healthy for your skin. And then there's sightseeing where you go to tombs that resemble the tombs in Luxor. So you really get the mix of desert, swimming, and a bit of ancient Egypt. That's something that I think is really different, and it's not offered by a lot of companies. So if you want to do something different in Egypt, this is the way to go. So basically, in terms of Nile cruising, there are so many different options that you can do. So as I was mentioning earlier, we have 5 Nile cruise boats and the 6th one that's being built. Just to give you a bit of an idea of what Nile cruising is like in Egypt, you can cruise the Nile from 3 nights all the way up to 14. So things that you wouldn't know when booking a Nile cruise online is that not all of the Nile cruise boats own their own docking areas. So sometimes you'll book a cruise thinking you're going to stay on like a 5-star amazing Nile cruise. But what you don't know is that this company doesn't have its own docking area. So when you come to park to get off to different temples, you're actually docked next to another like 4 or 5 boats. Sometimes it can go up to 7 boats. So when you open your curtain in the morning, you're not actually looking at a beautiful view of the Nile. You're looking at the window of the person on the other boat. So it's super important to make sure that when
And
you're booking, so we make sure to assign you on a boat that we know owns its own docking area. And our boats, we do own our own docking area. So that's something that we should clarify. Second thing is that not all the boats have handicap facilities. So that's something to keep in mind. The third thing is, as I mentioned earlier, there are so many different types of itineraries. So depending on how long your trip is, you'll actually be able to choose the itinerary that suits you, and we'd obviously help with that. And the last thing is in the summer season, which is when most of our travelers actually from Australia and New Zealand come. Not all of the boats are functioning because it's quite warm. So we actually always try to make sure that we book cruises that are guaranteed sailing, because a lot of them say that they will cruise in the summer and then they don't actually do that. So with our cruises, for example, we always have one boat that is fully functional, guaranteed sailing in the summer. So even if 2 or 3 cabins are booked, we are going to sail with our boats. So I wanted to just give you a little bit of an idea of how we do things differently at Travel Line. So we always like to go the extra mile. I know everyone goes to the pyramids and everyone's heard about the pyramids, but we can organize things that are extremely special for you. For example, we could actually open the pyramids for you at sunrise, so you would have the entire pyramids plateau to yourself with no other visitors. You'd have beautiful pictures. We can do a breakfast setup for a picnic for you and your family or whoever you're traveling with. And it would really feel like a private tour. Second thing is the restoration labs. So basically, in every single museum, there's a restoration lab, which is usually located in the basement of the museum, where all of our expert people in Egypt have worked really hard on learning how to restore and preserve all the artifacts that we discover throughout the years. And before displaying them on the museum, they basically explain the entire process to you from when they find it to when it goes there, what exactly happens, and for each type of artifact. Another thing is the palace dinners. So we can actually rent out palaces in Egypt that belong to our former kings and queens. And we can either do events. So we've done like musical events that people can join. We've done dinners catered by Egyptian chefs. So there are many ideas that come into that. And then there are tombs that are actually not open to the public, and we can get special permissions from the Ministry of Antiquities to open those for you if you're interested in a specific era or a specific tomb. So the Habayas are a different way of cruising the Nile. So I'm sure you've all heard of the bigger Nile cruise boats that do the classical itinerary from Aswan to Luxor or Luxor to Luxor. The Habayas are actually sailing boats that are much smaller. They range from 4 cabins all the way to 10 cabins. And they're usually privatized. So basically, you would charter the whole boat for you and your close friends or family. But there are a few that you can book by the cabin as well. And the interesting thing about them is that they have access to areas that the bigger boats don't have access to because they're smaller areas of the Nile that obviously the bigger boats cannot pass through. And also you can customize the itinerary to your needs. So obviously, if you charter it, you can build the itinerary depending on what sites you would like to personally visit. And a nice thing to mention here actually is that we are the first company in the history of tourism to actually do the long cruise from Cairo all the way to Upper Egypt with the Dahabeyah. So we did this around a month ago for a family who chartered our Dahabeyah, which is only 4 suites. And they chose to do the cruise from Cairo all the way to Upper Egypt, and it was a phenomenal experience. So I think now Rania will go to explaining our Nile cruise boats and what
Yes.
each one has to offer.
Okay, so as Kenzie was mentioning that a main vertical in our business, in our family business, is owning cruise boats. And almost 10 years ago, we had an agreement with the Movenpick to manage our boats. I know the Movenpick is not a very famous brand in Australia or New Zealand. It's coming out, and it's after being acquired by Sofitel. I would say we are more on the Sofitel side of business rather than the Movenpick. But back then, the Movenpick was not yet acquired by the Sofitel. So what happens is we own the boat and we co-manage the boat, but we get the brand name from the Movenpick. We have 5 boats, and the 6th is about to be launched in September of this year. I would like always to say that this is our flag boat. So the SS Misr is a very close to our heart boat. It used to belong to our late King Farouk. And my husband, one night, he was crossing a bridge late at night, and he saw this small boat on the side, which was a property of the government back then, owned by also a very famous businessman here in Egypt. He was able to buy the boat, and he completely renovated the boat around the steam engine, which is now almost over 100 years old. So it's a steamboat. It has 16 cabins and 8 suites, with each cabin has a panorama balcony where you can enjoy the Nile while sailing. Each cabin is different from the one before. And what's very unique about this boat, that it actually sails the Nile all the way from Cairo to Aswan. So this can take us to the map that I was going to show you. I want to show you this map. So this is the map from Cairo all the way to Aswan. These are the different governorates where the boat actually stops. So if you arrive in Cairo, you can still do all the Cairo destinations, as Kenzie was explaining. Of course, you can't come to Egypt without visiting the pyramids, the museum, and very, very shortly, the Grand Egyptian Museum is about to open as well. And then we stop in Bani Suef, Bani Hassan, Minya, Tal al-Amarna, Asyut, Suhag, all these along the Nile. Each and every destination along the Nile, it represents an era during the Pharaoh's dynasties. So you get to see the old, the middle, and also the new, all the way from Cairo to Aswan. This is against the current, so it takes 14 nights. And then from Aswan to Cairo, because the Nile flows upwards, so from Aswan to Cairo, it's 12 nights. This is a very, very famous itinerary people love to do, because you basically get to see all of historical Egypt in 2 weeks. To sail the Nile and be able to go through this itinerary, you have 2 options. Either you travel in history, so you're not just moving along the Nile and seeing and visiting all the historical sites, but you're also traveling in a time machine. So the boat itself is history. It represents a lot of our historical eras. The MS Darakum is also a motorboat. It's not a steamboat. It's more like modern Moroccan style. It's bigger in size. It's 44 cabins and 8 suites. I always represent it right after the Misr, because also the Darakum does the long cruise itinerary. So people who would like a little bit of a modern feel or look, they can also use the Darakum to sail the long cruise. We also have the MS Sunray. So the boats are getting bigger and bigger. So the Sunray is also a motorboat. It's 62 cabins and 4 suites. It is very, very well known for its entrance. So we have, if you can see here with the yellow chandeliers, this is a huge entrance, and you get the sun from the ceiling, from the sides. It's open, all glass, top to bottom. So it is actually a sun ray. So when you get in, it's full of sun. All the lounges, if you can see here to the left down, so the lounge is completely open, all glass. We also have the Hamis. So this is our biggest and oldest boat. It's 72 cabins. And it's actually very nice for people to travel on the Hamis. The Hamis and the Sunray, they do the short cruise. When I say short cruise, it's only between Luxor and Aswan. So it's either 4 nights, 3 nights, or 7 nights. So Luxor, Luxor, Aswan, Aswan, or Luxor, Aswan, Aswan, Luxor. So the boat, it's also a window to the culture. So on the Hamis, you get to meet also other people, other cultures, and it is an amazing experience, especially with the big boats. It's not a big boat like the resort Caribbean boats, but it's also one of the big boats on the Nile. If we go back to smaller sizes, as Kenzie was explaining, small dahabeyas, they are very, very trendy nowadays. They are like sailing boats. So we don't use motors, we use the sails to sail the Nile. It's very exclusive travel, very private. We've had a lot of celebrities and public figures on these boats, people who would not like to travel with other travelers. They want privacy, honeymooners, family, like friends. The Faddeya is our smallest boat. It's only 4 suites. And coming up soon would be Hayah. And Hayah means life. So Hayah is coming up in September, and it will be 8 suites. It was indeed our first time this year to, upon the request of a group of people, they have used the Faddeya, this one. They have used the Faddeya to cruise the Nile, the long cruise. It has never been done before. We were able to execute it on the Nile, and it was an amazing, amazing trip. People just loved it. So what happens is, if there's not enough winds, each Faddeya has a tugboat that actually pulls it to be able to sail. Zero noise, people get all the serenity and the quietness of the Nile. You get to see the Nile, the desert areas as you approach Cairo, and then along the banks you have the green, all the greenery, and it's really, really an amazing, amazing experience. So those are the boats. Hopefully, me and Kenzie would like to add to the fleet. So we have a small project in mind that we intend to execute and add to our fleet another exclusive way of traveling the Nile. But I'll keep it now on a low profile until we actually go ahead and execute what we want to do.
Marvelous. Well, thank you very much for running through those. I certainly have some questions to get us started off, if anybody else would like to also add theirs. So one thing that I really wanted to check with you is, so it is much more popular, from what I understand, for the Nile cruise to be just the 3 or the 4 days, Luxor to Luxor or Aswan involved. For those that are doing the longer cruises, what are they going to see that the others are missing? That sort of that more, and not only what are they going to see, but as they're sailing along, are there going to be very few other ships? Is it going to feel like a much more intimate cruising experience because there aren't going to be maybe that mass tourism that happens in the more popular destinations?
Well, honestly, Ron, I have done this trip myself. So what happens is, along the Nile, there are, since not so many cruises do the long cruise. So basically, it's us and another maybe 2 boats. So along the Nile, as you cruise the Nile, you just have the Nile for yourself. So one, you get to stop at destinations that are not easy accessible to the public, because if you want to visit these temples and these sites, you have to use the road, and it's very difficult to get there by road. It's either bumpy or the trip is not, it's not equipped. They take hours, like maybe 3 or 4 hours. The other thing is, because we've been doing it for a very long time, so we've identified areas where the boat can actually dock, and the tourists, they get off, do the visit, and they come back. These visits, because tourists cannot get there easily, so you arrive there and it's basically just you. It's very exclusive. It's only these travelers that are able to do it. So this is exactly the experience we are looking for travelers to experience.
Yeah, lovely. And that's those are the sort of experiences my clients are generally looking for as well. So fantastic. And then I gather, of course, along the way that you're going to be coordinating all of the land team as well to collect people and
Yeah,
take them
Kenzie
to
can
sites and everything. So
Yeah, so
Kenzie can
basically
talk
that's
about that.
my part of things. We organize all of the shore excursions, and you can actually choose between doing it privately or joining other English-speaking guests on board. And as Rania was saying, the boat docks within the closest proximity to the sites. And then we organize transfers to and from the sites. And I'd say that because you had asked what's different about the sites. So basically, with the long cruise, Rania also mentioned this, is that you're really focusing on the old, middle, and new kingdom of Egypt.
mm,
So it is extremely interesting. And even the experience in those sites, it's not that you just walk into a tomb and that's it. No, it's like you're walking into a place that's complete desert. You walk up steps, and then behind you, there's a tomb where you will eventually turn around and go into. But then in front of you, it's desert, greenery, and then the Nile. So the view is just spectacular and it's mind-blowing to see that so many different colors in front of you. And then you're going to turn around and go into a tomb where an Egyptologist will explain to you civilization that was there thousands and thousands of years ago. It's really, I mean, I have goosebumps right now just explaining it.
lovely, lovely. So just a brilliant contrast. Talking about the greenery, something that I was wondering, is certainly from your map, but also just how I perceive of the Sahara Desert, or the oasis that you have populated on your map earlier. So what sort of experiences exist around visiting the oasis, and are they living oasis? Are there where there's actually communities that still have been there for many, many generations, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so there are communities that live in Siwa, of course. They're mostly Bedouins, I would say, or um, and there is one person in Egypt that really focused on Siwa and opened many different lodges there or like places of accommodation, which are different levels. Some are 4-star, 5-star, and he's really put it together in a way where when you go there, you experience every single part of it. So um, let's say the most resort that we, or eco lodge that we book there is called Adrer Amelal,
Mhm.
which actually King Charles has stayed in before. And when you go there, you can actually get a excursion package from the hotel to make sure that you experience every single thing there. So you'd go on a desert safari, for example. And when I say safari, nothing to do with animals. It's just basically going through the desert. We set up like a fire for you where you have some Bedouin tea with the driver, eat some of the snacks that they usually eat there.
Mhm.
And when you go to the desert, there are no rocks. It's such fine sand, and the dunes are absolutely beautiful. And the sunsets from there are incredible. And then he'd drive you, for example, to the salt lakes that I was showing you about. So they're basically like salt mines all over. And when you go for a swim, when you come out, obviously you're filled with salt and it can get super itchy. So there's a pickup truck that comes and pulls up in front of you with a shower pump so that you can take a shower. So it's a really simple life and simple experience, but you really get to see, um, yeah, the perks or the beauty of living in nature, basically.
Right. And attention to detail. Yeah, giving people a rinse at the end sounds great. One area that I've had a lot of clients visit before, but generally around a lot of the war memorial areas is Alexandria. For and there's a lot of significance to visiting for that reason. But what else would one find in Alexandria for it to be what is quite a key place to visit as well? What would people find there would be of interest?
So my personal favorite is the jewelry museum, because it's not only about the jewelry that's in there, it's also about the museum itself. I mean, the structure of the complex and the interiors, the architecture is absolutely beautiful, and it really makes you reminisce about all the stories, I mean, that my grandparents or great-grandparents have told me about what Alexandria was like back in the day and what the homes looked like. So that's a really beautiful museum. The Alexandria Library is a very, very important place to visit as well. And then we have the Alexandria Museum, we have Pompey's Pillar, we have the Roman Amphitheater. So there are a number of different sites to visit in Alexandria, and then obviously you have to stop by a fish restaurant and have the amazing Mediterranean fresh fish for lunch. So that there are a couple of places to visit in Alexandria, and that can be done on the way to Siwa, as I was saying earlier.
Yeah, lovely. I was curious. We certainly spoke about the river cruising. What are the rail journeys like? What are the options around that in Egypt? Do you have people do that often? Are there rail journeys of a quality where people would enjoy that, or is it functional only?
So we've actually, as a country, when I say we, Egypt has been working on updating the trains and really focusing on the cleanliness, how fast they are, and the upkeep. So we do have a couple of new trains. The older ones I would highly recommend against. So when you book, we have to make sure that the new ones are functioning and they only do specific routes. So if someone were to come and the old ones would be available, I would not book it.
Great.
Yeah, it will have to be the new ones.
Yeah,
And
good.
actually, there's a train that goes from Cairo to Alexandria. A friend of mine just took it last week, and she sent me videos, and it was perfect.